So in today's video, we're going to talk about 10 rules that you should follow before you move to Norfolk, Virginia. I've had a lot of people that have been wanting to move to Norfolk and are planning to move in the 2024. These rules are intended as a guide to help you in your decision making so that when you move to Norfolk, you'll have a proper framework for making decisions and picking which parts of the area you want to move to. Rule number one is don't assume area feel. What do I mean by that? Part of Norfolk has a lot of culture, very nice architecture like Victorian craftsman style houses. Ghent, if you've heard of Ghent, West Ghent, downtown Norfolk, a lot of art, the Arts District, the Neon District, a lot of character in this part of Norfolk. Well, people often associate Norfolk with this type of culture and character. At the same time, a lot of Norfolk is not like that. And the places that have culture, this unique character, as you drive through town, that character can change in an instant. And so if you find a house online, for example, that has the type of feel and atmosphere that you might like a lot and you want to move to Norfolk for, you might go a few blocks or a mile or whatever, and that area, that feel might completely change. So it's important to know that before you move here. And so also, there are a couple of Navy bases in the north side of Norfolk. Well, those Navy bases bring a lot of people to Norfolk from all different parts of the country. And so as people come and go and move, it's a transient area, you'll find that a lot of the area in Norfolk just doesn't have as much culture as what is specifically in these south and southwestern parts of Norfolk, like in Ghent. So when you look online, look at houses, and you see the types of houses and areas that make you feel like I'm getting a lot of unique character and culture, just know that not every part of Norfolk's like that, and a lot of it actually is not. So just do some research before you move to make sure you know exactly what type of house and area you're moving to before you decide to move here. So that leads me to the second one. It's interesting, which is rule number 2 is pick your shopping centers. So when you're moving to Norfolk, you look on the map, you'll see a lot of Norfolk has a lot of suburban areas, right? But it's an old suburban town. A lot of 40s, 50s, and 60s style houses and a lot of 40s and 50s style strip malls. And so a lot of the city is filled with older style shopping centers and strip malls that just don't feel very renovated, like you might see in parts of Virginia Beach or Chesapeake, for example. And so that leads me to grocery stores. So if you do a search for grocery store in Norfolk, you'll find that there aren't too many. There are a few Harris Teeters in Norfolk. There's one on the north side near Ward's Corner on the north part here, but also in the middle of Ghent, there's one there. And Fresh Market as well, but still a lot of a lot of food lines. What's important to know about this is that number one is it's not easy to drive to one in a very short period of time. It's going to take you several 5, 10, 15 minutes to get to probably the closest grocery store. But on top of that, the most convenient ones might not be the type of grocery stores you like the best. What you might find is if you want, like for example, Wegmans is in Virginia Beach, Central Virginia Beach, Whole Foods, Eastern Virginia Beach. Chesapeake has some more like Kroger, Harris Teeter. There was more of those same style grocery stores in other cities. So if you go and move into Norfolk, you'll find that there just aren't as many options. And grocery stores can be a big deal, and that's one of the most frequent places you might shop. And the closest one you might be shopping to, you might not like very much. So keep that in mind before you decide on where you want to move to in Norfolk. With Norfolk, you have older houses. With older houses, you need to budget for old house problems. So things like cast iron piping that comes from the house goes through the waste lines to the city on the street. Those can be galvanized or cast iron pipes that can corrode from the inside over time and break down. That can lead to, lots of leaks and having to redo those pipes. It can be $10,000+. I've seen it happen. It's things like old electrical wiring. Lots of patchwork done to houses over the course of 50, 60, 70 years that you might find that, like, we live in a house built in the 60s. We have a lot of surprises when you start doing big changes and repairs to the house because you've got a story of 50, 60, 70 years worth of events that have happened. And so you have things that have taken place over time that if you bought a house that was built in 2009, not as many years for lots of things to happen. If the windows haven't been replaced in a long time, much older windows, maybe single pane windows sometimes, big weird size windows that are hard or costly to replace, slate roofs that are very good when they're in good condition, but but repairing them and getting people to work on them can be very hard or very expensive. These are just several of what can be a lot of different types of old house style problems, things that can cost a lot of money over time that if you don't budget for, you might be surprised over time as you live in the house. So that leads me to number 4, which is public or private school. A lot of times when people move to Norfolk, they're trying to decide, do I want to move my kids to public school or do I want private school? And that is often a debate. There are several prominent private schools that people will choose between in Norfolk if they choose to go private route. Norfolk Academy, Norfolk Christian, Norfolk Collegiate, those are 3, but there are several others. And also Cape Henry and Virginia Beach, those are some of the primary larger ones in the area, but there are quite a few others. So just keep that in mind, that part of the cost of the payment for their house can factor into the demand of the area, which could affect which school zones that you might be going to. So that leads me to number 5, which is know the flood maps. So what do I mean by that? Well, Norfolk is known in a lot of parts to have flooding issues. Not everywhere, but enough that you definitely need to be aware of what the flooding maps look like. So then how do you figure out flood zones? Well, number 1 is if you're looking at a house, you can ask your real estate agent who would probably have access to maps that can help. Number 2 is talking to insurance companies to find out the exact location of a house in relation to a flood zone. That would be also very helpful. You can also do some research on your own. Look up FEMA flood maps. So you can see, like on the map here I'm looking at here, you can see where floodplains are in relation to specific houses. A lot of these things, I would not rely upon yourself or even your agent to guarantee where the zone is. This will definitely give you a guide though. Take this information, compare it to what the insurance company is saying. The flood maps here, if you see Zone AE is an area that it would require flood insurance according to FEMA. So if your house lies in that zone, the cost of your total mortgage payment and flood insurance combined will obviously be higher. If it's outside of AE, then it most likely will not require flood insurance. But these maps are designed to help give you a guide to figure out where the house that you're looking at is lying in relation to a flood zone. There's also not just AE, there's X, X500. X and X500 do not require flood insurance in most cases, but AE almost always does. When you're doing your mortgage payment calculations online, when you look at a house, that payment might be much higher than you may have thought when you were initially plugging those numbers into your mortgage calculator, because the flood insurance might kick up your payment more than you might have expected. So number 6, consider zoning regulations and guidelines in the city of Norfolk. I mentioned before, Norfolk is a very old city. Well, again, over time, you're talking about a city that has a story, a long story of things that have changed, decisions that have changed the complexion of what the city looks like, right? One of those kind of story topics is zoning, because zoning, as zoning changes, it changes what lots can look like, where houses are built, how they're built. So with that, you have houses that have been around for 80, 90, 100 years. Well, as zoning guidelines change, the houses can't be moved necessarily, but as zoning changes, it can affect what can be done to that specific house. That can affect also things like if you have something built outside or set outside of your property, but the zoning has changed to where the location of that thing now does not allow for that thing to be located there anymore. Well, if you have to move it, you might not be able to move it where you want to because of zoning changes. There are things called illegal subdivisions that over time, a house is maybe re-subdivided, but maybe done to where the current location of things on a property are now illegal. And that can affect maybe how title insurance is issued. So a lot of things like that you wouldn't necessarily think about when you're just buying the house that you love that's built in 1926. Well, a lot of things have happened over time that can change what you can do to that house. And again, a lot of these things might not matter generally speaking in most situations, but they're enough to where in some spots I would definitely consider the fact that zoning can play a part in whether or not you should buy the house or not. Number 7 is account for messy traffic. So you'll definitely hear from people that are coming from larger cities that traffic is not a big deal here. But it can be very, very annoying. And I think annoying to the point to where if you live in certain sections or corners of Norfolk, you might find that getting from one side of the city to the other can be very, very frustrating. So I'm going to show you on the map like what I'm talking about. So you zoom out and look at Norfolk. The central parts, you're going to see that like if you're on the north side, like Ocean View and right near the beach, Getting down to the south part or different parts of the city like Virginia Beach or Chesapeake, it can be frustrating, not just because of it's a long drive in general distance-wise, but you've got stoplights, you've got weird directions and angles of different roads, you've got interstates that can be very congested because the exit ramps onto the interstates can be very congested, and especially even like 64, Interstate 64 can be packed, especially in rush hour. So at a road that if you Google it, from your house to your work might take 17 minutes. Traffic could make it 30 plus very, very easily. And especially if the tunnel backs up, which can be a problem, all these things can add up. And then if you live on the corners of the city, like in West Ghent, for example, crossing over Hampton Boulevard, taking Hampton Boulevard, this main road to the tunnel, it can be frustrating because there's a long backup during rush hour. Getting across to Virginia Beach, that's like on the 264 from the west side of Norfolk over to the Virginia Beach can be frustrating. This whole thing, this whole traffic dynamic isn't just a total catastrophe, but it might feel like it when you're driving in the middle of it, especially in the rush hour congested time period. So just keep that in mind that when you're looking and doing the searches on maps, make sure you factor in that the traffic can definitely change compared to what you might expect on a normal day. Now, number 8 is don't focus just on the city of Norfolk to live. If you're planning to move to Norfolk, if you're transferring to a base military base in Norfolk, you've got a job in Norfolk, or if you're just looking and you see that Norfolk is a pretty commonly searched city in Hampton Roads, you might think that I need to move to Norfolk or that's all I have to choose from. The reality is you don't. And Virginia Beach is right next door, literally. And there are parts of Virginia Beach that look just like and feel like Norfolk very closely. Chesapeake is also right next, butts up to Norfolk as well, down the south part. Portsmouth also just cross through the tunnel and you're right into Portsmouth. And also Suffolk is further away, but about, can be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes away from Norfolk or more. Newport News and Hampton across the water, Yorktown, Williamsburg. These areas are anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes to an hour from Norfolk. My point here is that if you look in Norfolk and you're like, I don't know if I want to live in Norfolk, there are other options and alternatives you can pivot to that might fit more of what you're looking for, and you can still use and reap the benefits of being close to Norfolk. And maybe you want to live in Virginia Beach or Chesapeake or Portsmouth and work in Norfolk. You have other options except just focusing on the city specifically of Norfolk, because I do think people get so focused on a specific city thinking that this is all that there is, but it really is not. It's just a small portion of the entire Hampton Roads area. And then rule number 9 is going to be prepared for changes coming to Norfolk. The malls in Norfolk are going to be completely changed soon. Number 1 is like JANF, Lake Taylor Military Circle Mall, which is in the southeastern part of Norfolk. There have been plans that are in place or proposed to change this area into something completely different, like an arena, which would change the complexion of this whole southeastern section. Also, MacArthur Center Mall, like the prime mall in all of Hampton Roads, is now basically almost nothing. It's really sad, and I think that eventually this is going to be something totally different. Now, what it's going to be, not totally sure yet, but it's going to change as well. And also on top of that, there's a lot happening in the Ocean View area near East Beach. So the previous, reputation of what Ocean View was might not be the same as we go through the next 5-10 years. And also Park Place, which is like southwestern near Ghent. This is making some changes as well, closer to where a lot of restaurants are popping up on the south part of Park Place. Areas nearby Riverview, that's changing as well. As the culture and the area of Norfolk has been this way for a long time, there are some places that are also changing. So when you move to Norfolk, just do some checks to see, okay, what else is happening around where I'm living that could change either for the positive for where I want to be, or might make me want to move somewhere else because of changes that are happening that might affect how I live in that respective part of Norfolk. So then it leads me to number 10, which is a very important one to me. I think the most important one is expect surprises. And this is a lot of it is as far as when you buy your house, because again, you have an older house, you have just an older style location, lots of like unique random things. So just be prepared that if you have a vision of what you think your house or area might look like or supposed to feel like, it might not be exactly what you're expecting before you get here. So make sure you do a preliminary check and drive through the area first. I can help you with this, but to focus on like, okay, what parts of the area you like and don't like, and you can clear out like at least over half of the area before you really start honing in on specific houses and neighborhoods. There are a lot of parts of the country where you've got some planned subdivisions subdivisions, those big master plan communities, for example. There's almost none of that in Norfolk or the parts around it. So that leads to just a bunch of mishmash, a bunch of randomness that over time has changed and taken unique turns as far as what it looks like and feels like. And the houses, again, they're old, so expect surprises. Like, for example, expect things that you might need to do with the home inspection when you get your home inspection. Expect, like, for example, the zoning stuff. Like, just be ready as you move here to be prepared for surprises, because even if you think you've covered everything, you might find some stuff that you might not have expected. And I think just walking into this part of the area expecting that is going to help make your process in moving here a lot smoother. So if you have any questions about relocating here, or just want to live in Norfolk or the Hampton Roads area, Virginia Beach through Williamsburg, let me know. That's just what I do. I love helping people relocate to the area. So if you have any questions, you can email me, call me, text me. You can leave a comment below. My contact information is in the description below. You can reach out at any point, and I will do whatever I can to help you relocate to the area. And I will see you on the next video.